Hi guys, welcome back. We're going to jump into asks. Now, a few of these you have seen before. I said that I would do a little more digging on them or come back to them. This one, so we talked about how they're both going to be at the France Con in June. This was announced and how suspicious that is. Well, just this last Thursday, I think, Emily formally announced that she's going to be at this con. Let's see. She'll be doing a convention in France with multiple other TWD cast members called From Atlanta to Paris, June 20th through 21st. She says she's specifically looking forward to spending her summer in Europe. Very interesting. Why would she need to spend her summer in Europe if the con only lasts 2 days? And as far as I know, we have not gotten any word about her filming anything else, so it's super suspicious that she might secretly be filming things there all summer, which we would hope for. The roster is also stacked. No Norman, Melissa, Andy, or JDM. Lauren will be the only active cast member. So the thing that's interesting about this, these are all the cast members that are going to be there. And the thing that I kept thinking about this, even aside from Emily saying she's going to be there all summer and everything, is that I don't specifically remember them doing France before. Now, don't get me wrong, they probably have. I'm sure there are cons in France that they've gone to before. I remember, and it was after season 5. I want to say it was like 6 or 7-ish. They did a big one in London. So they've done big cons like this before in different places. And I remember the London one specifically because there were so many people there. Like all of the cast members who were there were getting on social media and just going, I cannot believe how many people are here. There are so many people here. And that's saying a lot because they get a lot of people at the big cons here in the States. And it's probably because they don't do them very often in London that everybody in the entirety of the UK who is a fan showed up for it. And I want to say that that was the con where Melissa had a panic attack because there were so many people and Norman had to go get her. I just remember that con really well. And just that they were saying there was so many people there and almost like maybe the event didn't do crowd control as well as they probably should have. And it was okay. Nobody got hurt. There weren't any big incidents or anything other than Melissa having a panic attack, poor thing. Um, but anyway, the point is they don't do these huge cons in other countries very often. And, of course, it makes sense that they're doing this with, Daryl Dixon having been, doing a lot of time in France. But at the same time, if it were only that, that was almost 2 seasons ago. And he and Carol left France. And it's like, okay, but why would they be doing this now, right? But we know that there's a filming location for Dead City that said France, and we think there's going to be more to go in France. So I guess my point is saying from Atlanta to Paris is very obviously linking the origins of The Walking Dead to France. And this is a huge con with a ton of the actors into it, even if it's not the really active ones still. There are a lot of them who are going. And so to me, this is a big deal. They're saying that there's going to be more going on with France, that they're very openly pushing this, and of course, it's a convenient cover if Emily's going to be there for a while. And again, we know there was a filming location there. So anyway, the point is that it's just all making a lot of sense. And I just, it's another thing that Team Delusional has been kind of right about. So I will just leave that here. Let's see, did we say anything else? Second time they've done this one, and it's a TWDU con. So this isn't like Comic-Con or Fantasy Con or anything like that. It's just for the TWD universe, which is pretty cool. Okay, what else have we got here? Okay, with all the theories TD has been posting, I just can't help but think that Daryl is going to be drugged and hallucinate like Michonne did right before she found out Rick could be out there alive. By the way, do you know if there are any TD theories related to that particular episode? Michonne and Daryl are heavily parallel, just as Rick and Beth, so I'd be more surprised if there aren't any theories floating around somewhere. Let's start there. I mean, we definitely did have theories about that and just how that they are heavily paralleled. I don't know that there's a whole lot more than that, but there have been plenty of theories about, we've talked a lot about what Daryl might find that belongs to Beth. So, how Michonne found Rick's boots. And, it occurred to her that they shouldn't be there unless he was alive. We've wondered if he'll find something of Beth's. And we don't know what it will be. We've talked about him finding her journal, maybe the necklace she used to wear, the heart necklace. It honestly could be her boots, although I don't know. I just don't know if he would find her boots distinctive enough, not in the way Rick's were. But the thing is, the boots are really important, more important than I think we sometimes give them credit for. because the walking was paralleled. So you remember how when right before Rick went missing, that episode where he got hurt and Jadis took him away in the helicopter, there was that shot that they did that showed him walking and it was focused on his boots and you could see blood dripping onto his boots. And they actually used that as a promo for the episode to freak people out that Rick was going to die. And I remember there were jokes where people made like AI, it wasn't really AI back then. It was, I don't know, Photoshop or something, where he was like eating a taco and it was the taco spilling on his boots. And it was just all a joke. And it was people, hoping he wasn't going to die and everything. Anyway, but the point is, the camera focused on his boots walking forward on the bridge and, the blood dripping onto them. If you go back and you look at, it's got to be Inmates, there's a part where it focuses on Beth's boots in an almost identical shot as she's walking. Now, she's not bleeding, so there's not dripping blood. It's when she's with Daryl and they're trying to track the kids and find people. But the point is, that's such a huge parallel. It's such an identical parallel that I can't imagine that that's not important, right? So yeah, there's definitely theories. I won't go into too many. What I can do is I'll link my analysis of those episodes from way back when, and I might have put some of the theories in there. So, but we definitely have them. Okay. With Michonne, though, if it was more of an AU of what would have happened to her if she never saved Andrea. With Daryl, if he were to hallucinate anything, I really believe he would think about what happened to Beth after she was shot and in return would reveal to the audience what happened during the missing 17 days. That would explain why Norman Reedus describes the final season as weird and emotional, plus the hospital setting that Daryl ends up being in could trigger memories that he's clearly been suppressing. And since there's legitimate proof that there will be a few AU sequences featuring Beth in Dead City, it seems fitting that both Maggie and Daryl have their own AU hallucinations right before finding out Beth survived. Yeah, I agree. Because no announcements have been made on when a new season of Daryl Dixon or Dead City will be aired, if Daryl Dixon comes out first, I really don't think we'll see Beth or Emily. But just like Michonne, Daryl will find out that Beth survived and could still be out there. And credits of the series. It would also be fitting to have that as his happy ending, to find out that the love of his life is still alive and he just has to go find her. Side note. I absolutely cannot wait to see a merciless Daryl because he's not going to want to take to the peaceful trade route like he did at Grady. Yeah, he's going to burn anything and everything to the ground if it means finding Beth again. But if Dead City comes out first, I think it would be revealed that Beth is alive by the end of the season, which would make sense since Maggie and Negan apparently end up in France, and they'll save the Beth cameo for Daryl Dixon right after Daryl finds out she's alive. I have no definite proof. This is more so a headcanon. I'm just anxious for any announcement at this point. With the way things are heading, I have little doubt that both the season series finales are going to be a Beth is alive reveal for not only the characters, but for the audience as well. I'm not sure if the upcoming season for Dead City is also its last season, but if it is, I think it would be fantastic for the new Walking Dead series, featuring the main group to be about finding Beth and taking down the CRM. Bonus for a Cure storyline to come into play with Beth as the key for it. I know it'd be a dream of Gimple's to finally tell a story that he set up years ago. After finishing all the comic storylines, they had to get out of the way first. Yeah, you know what? I absolutely love the way that you've laid this out. This is perfect. And I agree. I mean, it could go either way, but no matter which ways it goes, I think all roads lead to the same destination, which is going to be Beth. Um, yeah, and I mean, he had to get past all the comic book storylines, plus he had to get past all the red tape. I mean, everything from COVID to streaming rights to needing to wait till their intellectual property reverted back to them after 5 years after ending the agreement with Netflix. And I mean, there's been so much red tape he's had to wade through. And I think, yeah, he's going to be ecstatic to finally finish something he started really back in season 2 when he wrote Beth's almost suicide arc. So yeah, thank you for that. I don't have a whole lot more to add because I think you're right. And I agree. I can't wait to see Daryl go bowling through Europe looking for Beth. That's going to be fun. So yeah, super cool. And yeah, in terms of, yeah, I remember watching the AU of Michonne back then and feeling like there's more there that we're not getting, and probably we would get it now. I definitely need to do some rewatches, and I will do my best to do those. But yeah, beyond that, like I said, I will just post my analysis from back then, and maybe that'll knock some things loose for you. So thank you for sending that in. That's awesome. All right, hello. Finally getting around to getting caught up. Regarding the clip about filming Coda, what really stands out to me is the staff member's confirmation about a small amount of blood and an exit wound. In season 4, when the prison fell, Tyrese was shot, and when Sasha finds an exit wound, he's happy. and mentions we can treat it. Oh, you mean I think you mean Bob, not Tyrese. Possible foreshadowing or coincidence. Can't help but notice how social media has blown up with Beth Daryl centric posts since Beth was seen filming for Dead City. Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, there was a lot of ways in which Bob was a proxy for Beth. We've talked a lot about the beginning of Alone and how that shows Daryl and Glenn finding Bob alone on the road, and how that's definitely, we've always felt like that was a foreshadow of things that would happen with Beth. So yeah, I do think that that was probably a foreshadow. And yeah, I've noticed that too, a lot more of Beth on social media. Um, I've been getting these goofy, and I know I posted one of them a while ago that are like obviously AI, and they're the different characters as rock stars, like actually playing in a rock band. And you can tell it's AI because the faces are a little bit off. Like you can tell it's Negan, but it doesn't look exactly like Jeffrey Dean Morgan, you know? And where before we would get things like that, but they didn't usually include Beth, especially if they were fan made. They were just using the characters who are currently on the show, you know, but they keep showing up with Beth in them. And so I think that's really interesting too. I feel like, you know, while we can't prove things like that aren't fan made, I think some of them aren't. I think they're being put out by, you know, cloaked AMC social media so that they can just kind of sneak Beth back into our heads and into our social media feeds. So yeah, I think that's really fun to see. So thank you, and glad you're getting all caught up. Okay, next one. I think Atrium Regina Blue and I have maybe found the key to deciphering the license plate symbolism. Ooh. Strong's Hebrew lexicon attaches numerical values to Hebrew words. For example, the license plate on Aaron's car that gets stuck in the walkers and has all the license plates in it reads IU7 3517. 3517 is a Christian. 351 is Artemis. Yes, the same Artemis that keeps showing herself in my symbolism posting. 517 is invisible. Carol's exile car license plate reads UJH 27T3. 273 is a negative adjective for a person who believes themselves blameless, guiltless, or without fault. Additionally, I believe the letters sometimes correspond with Bible books. Using Carol again as an example, UJH 273 becomes Joshua 2 3 through 7, which are Rahab's verses in reverse. This is significant because Carol is an inversion of the biblical Rahab. The van Eugene drives after Noah dies, the one with the phoenix on the side, references a great passage. LT5 520 becomes Lamentations 5 5 through 20, which says, those who pursue us are at our heels. We are weary and find no rest. We submitted to Egypt and Assyria to get enough bread. Our ancestors sinned and are no more, and we bear their punishment. Slaves rule over us, and there is no one to free us from their hands. We get our bread at the risk of our lives because of the sword in the desert. Our skin is hot as an oven, feverish from hunger. Women have been violated in Zion, the virgins in the towns of Judah. Princes have been hung up by their hands. Elders are shown no respect. Young men toil at the millstones. Boys stagger under loads of wood. The elders are gone from the city gate. The young men have stopped their music. Joy is gone from our hearts. Our dancing has turned to mourning. The crown has fallen from our head. Woe to us, for we have sinned. Because of this, our hearts are faint. Because of these things, our eyes grow dim for Mount Zion, which lies desolate, with jackals prowling over it. O Lord, reign forever. Your throne endures from generation to generation. Why do you always forget us? Why do you forsake us so long? 552 in the Hebrew lexicon is an adjective that means inexperienced, ignorant, or unskillful. This method can be used to decipher any of the license plates. We did about a dozen of them last night, and the results were juicy and significant every time. That's super awesome. I wouldn't have thought to look at something like that. And I believe, I guess I don't, I, no, I'm pretty sure that it's been said that Gimple has a Jewish heritage, which means he would be familiar with stuff like this. I mean, that's why he's familiar with so many different cultural things and biblical things. You know, I mean, obviously he's also a writer, so he's made himself very familiar with these things. But yeah, this is really interesting. And this whole passage here from Lamentations is interesting. You know, we could go through just through that, and it would be really juicy to apply it to The Walking Dead. And once again, this just kind of puts me in mind of what I talked about in the previous video, that you know, Coda, when as Andrew Lincoln said, everything broke apart. It was such a big and pivotal moment, and I feel I really do. I mean, a lot of this is headcanon for me, but I really do feel like they're going to have to return to what happened. Maybe not physically, maybe not, you know, going back to Atlanta, although I wouldn't mind that for sure. But to what happened there, I feel like there was so much that happened there that Team Family just isn't aware of. They didn't understand there was a much bigger force that was propelling those events, the CRM or whatever it ends up being, than they could, because they couldn't really see it. And we always talk about, for example, when Father Gabriel is doing Tyrese's funeral and he talks about the things that are unseen that are important, like we always refer that to specifically to Beth and the fact that she lived, but they can't see that. Okay, but what if it refers to a lot more than that? I mean, of course there is that about Beth, but what if it refers to the fact that the CRM is always there, like hovering over them, and they just can't see it, because they don't see it physically, so they don't understand that there's something else going on, and they think that it's just fate, or they think it's bad luck, or they think it just sucks and it's just tragedy, and this is just the world they live in, but they don't understand that there's something bigger that are driving those events. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what the scripture puts me in thought of, is just that something big happened, and they've almost, a lot of the characters have almost been kind of in purgatory ever since then, and they're not going to be able to come out of it until they can see the whole truth of what was going on then and what's going on now. And Beth is probably the one that's going to actually bring that truth to them. So yeah, I really like this. Thanks for doing that. And yeah, you'll have to look at license plates. Feel free to send them in whenever you want so we can see them. And also moving forward, let's put this to use. So thank you. This is a fantastic find. Thanks for sending that in. Rogue Ostrich. Random idea of how Beth might get back home. Or better yet, how Negan might figure out she's a member of Team Family once he meets her. She calls zombies walkers. Our group is the only group we ever encounter who call them that. And sure, maybe he could just think it's a coincidence, but it could work, maybe, especially if she's got a crossbow. I don't know. I feel like Negan could figure it out. Yeah, I do too. I feel like anyone big she crosses paths with, they're going to be able to figure out relatively quickly that they know the same people. So yeah, I definitely think that could be a thing. Um, and I believe Negan knows that a lot of Rick's group came from Atlanta. Um, Even though he didn't meet them there, I think he knows that. So, anyway, it wouldn't be that difficult to figure out. I agree. So, totally. Okay, Obadella 2. Finally, some big news to talk about. Dead City Season 3 writing credits are out and confirmed on the Writers Guild of America site. Biggest news here, there are 8 episodes, but the last episode that was confirmed filming was 6. So there are 2 more episodes that filming spoilers did not appear for. How very interesting. And then just look at these writing credits and then look up what Seth Hoffman and Matthew Negrete, I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. I always want to say Negretti, but I'm not sure if that's correct either. Have written in the past. Okay. So these are, I'm not going to read through them all, but these are names that we are familiar with. Both of these guys have definitely written for The Walking Dead before. And I'm not the biggest expert on the writing credits, but some of my fellow theorists are. Hold on. Galadriel Jones is our resident um, research doer, and she's really good at finding things. So she says she looked into this. Seth Hoffman is the new showrunner, which is extremely interesting because despite being all over the writing for seasons 4 through 6, Seth Hoffman has done nothing else for TWD. So she's just saying that he wrote a lot of what was going on in seasons 4 through 6, which obviously 4 and 5 were about Beth, and then he just disappears. Like he hasn't done anything else, and it's like they're bringing him back to suddenly take over here, which is interesting. Okay, so excited to see about these writers, and you know by now that Matt Negretti is one of my favorites, and he was the showrunner for The World Beyond too. Here's the episodes he wrote or co-wrote, so she's got them listed here as well. You can see 4, 5, 6, 7, a lot of them. He's somebody who has been working on The Walking Dead for a long time. After TWD S10, he became the showrunner for The World Beyond. He also wrote for the series. Unfortunately, I don't have a complete list of writers, but I do know that he wrote. So this is from The World Beyond. He wrote season 1, episode 1 with Gimple, and then the very last one with 2 other writers. And you guys, that was the one where they had the 2 scientists who were French, who were speaking, and then the man shot the woman in the head. And so there's a French tie there. And there's also a tie to something we think is tied to the CRM and just like groups that were experimenting with the virus and might have let it out or might it's probably ties back to episode 1 where what's his name said that the French were holding out for the longest times. I mean, there's a lot of little subtle hints here and the ways that things are connected, and we're seeing the same writers who were involved in all of those kinds of episodes who are being brought back right now to work on the show again. So these are the Seth Hoffman episodes from WDWA as well. Not as long a list as Matt Negrete, but still very impressive. Okay, so Galadriel Jones says, I did a little research on this. I'm going to read through this, by the way, but she actually also did her own post on this that I'm going to repost in my feed. So you can go look at that as well. And I'm sure she has more details. But um, there's two new female writers that are newbies to TWDU. Looks like Gimple totally replaced the crew for Dead City. Both the writers are women. One worked on a historical drama for HBO, and the other was a writer for Law and Order before this. Make of that what you will. The thing I truly find interesting about this crew is that along with Gimple, Hoffman, and Negretti are responsible for a lot of the most important TD episodes in seasons 4 and 5. He has been heavily involved in the spin-offs too, and I see now how close he is to the CRM subplot. Meanwhile, Seth Hoffman is really interesting to me because he hasn't done anything since seasons 4 through 6. He doesn't have a Wikipedia page. He's had no involvement with TWD for 10 years, just like Emily, but he's heavily involved during the time period of Grady and the missing 17 days. It is unexpected that Gimple would bring him back or that he'd even want to come back unless this was always part of the plan, i.e., Seth wanted to return when Beth did and Gimple played out his grand scheme. That's obvious speculation, but I also learned that Hoffman and Gimple also wrote a script together in 2011 for the Ghost Rider sequel starring Nicolas Cage, and they also both worked together briefly on Flash Forward, so they're probably friends. It seems like Gimple is bringing back his inner circle, Sans King and Powell. David Boyd is another writer on the season of Dead City, and he was previously a director on TWD. He directed Internment, Strangers, Forget, and Heads Up, and I think some more. He was also around at that very key time and is now serving as a writer for the series. It's almost too much of a coincidence to bear, LOL, meaning it's probably not a coincidence at all, obviously. So yeah, this is good stuff and it's exciting to see. And again, I just feel like it's all kind of coming together in a way we've been hoping for a long time. So yeah, thank you for this information, Obadella. And like I said, I'm not the best at keeping track of this, but as soon as I sent it to my fellow theorists, they just ran with it and found all kinds of good stuff. So thank you very much for sending that in. That's awesome. Alrighty. Hi there, how are you? It's been a long time. I hope you're doing well. I am, thank you. I wanted to share some thoughts with you because I recently rewatched episode 905, the one where Rick disappears into the CRM. I decided to revisit it before watching The Ones Who Live, and I thought it would be nice to refresh my memory of what happened just before he was taken. I know you've already analyzed Rick's hallucinations, but I noticed a few details that stood out to me. Just before Rick's hallucination of Herschel, he hears Beth's voice, or Emily Kinney's to be exact, but the caption labels it simply as woman. We've discussed before whether that choice was intentional, and I still believe it was. To me, this could hint at Beth's possible return, but not exactly as we knew her. Something that stuck with me after watching Fear the Walking Dead is how several characters adopted new identities after joining Padre. So I'm thinking it could be a similar situation here. Beth might return as Beth Emily, but at the same time not quite be the same person, but under a different name, possibly even with memory loss or a transformed identity. And that's why the powers that be were reluctant to use Beth's name in that moment. Also, before we see Rick with Herschel, there's a split-second frame showing the body of a young blonde woman with blue eyes lying on the floor. I won't post the pic because it's a bit freaky, LOL, but if you go back and watch it, you'll see that she strongly resembles Beth with similar wavy curly hair. Her body has clearly been eaten by walkers, but her head is intact. There's no visible gunshot wound or fatal head injury. The setting also seems like a hospital since she's wearing scrub bottoms and there's a wheelchair in the background. This led me to think that since the whole idea of the hallucination is clearly symbolic, leading Rick into the CRM, at some level, Rick might have believed or assumed that Beth's body was eaten by walkers, maybe during the missing 17 days. I won't go into the other details you've already analyzed, like the following hallucination with Sasha, where we see multiple dead bodies on the ground as Rick walks through them. What's striking there is that it includes both characters who are actually dead, like Tyrese, Shane, and Sasha, and other characters who are still alive at that point, Daryl, Beth, Negan, Maggie, Rosita, Jesus, Carol. What stands out to me is that there seems to be a particular emphasis on Beth throughout these sequences. This visual cue with the blonde woman, the use of her voice, the ambiguity around her identity, and the way the camera focused a lot on her body. It feels very deliberate. At this point, it's hard for me to see it as a coincidence. I'd love to hear what you think about this. Yeah, absolutely. I love the way that you've laid this out. I guess I hadn't really thought about them not using her name as being a hint at a different identity, but that does make sense. And I don't know, I go back and forth about the memory loss, which I've talked about before, but I think there's a really good chance that she'll be using a different name. And that could be why it's difficult to find her. And whether she's using it because she has identity or excuse me, memory loss, and so she's taken a new name, or if she's doing it on purpose to hide her identity because she's like a double agent or something. Um, Either one could be the case. I mean, maybe I've even thought about maybe if she escaped from the CRM at some point, then maybe she took a new name to hide from the CRM so that there would never be any whispers of her location. I mean, it could be anything. It could be any of these things. So I actually think that's really interesting, the idea that that's why they used they just said woman rather than saying Beth, because that's not the name she'll be using when we see her again. That's interesting. I like that. I don't remember the young blonde woman. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. And maybe I noticed it before and have just forgotten, but that wouldn't be the first time they've done that. We've said a lot of the blonde walkers resemble her in various ways. But one that comes to mind is in season 4 at the prison after Patrick turned and killed everybody. There was a young blonde woman who looked a lot like Beth. And in fact, I've told this story before, but when I was watching it with my dad, he thought that was Beth. And he's like, oh, isn't that, and he couldn't remember her name. He's like, isn't that Herschel's younger daughter? Didn't she just get killed? And I was like, no, she's still in it. That's not her. But it looked enough like her that my dad actually thought it was her. And I absolutely believe that was meant to be a foreshadow of Beth because not only did she look like her, but Daryl shoots that walker in the head with an arrow. They're just going around making sure that they're getting all of their brains so that nobody reanimates again. And he shoots her in the forehead exactly where Beth is shot. So to me, that's absolutely not a coincidence. So yeah, if they did that again here in 904, then yeah, 100% that is a hint. Um, so yeah, I agree. I love what you've put here, and I do think that they did have a huge focus on her in this part. And, you might say why, given that we haven't actually seen her yet, and she didn't show up in The Ones Who Live or anything. Well, there was the blonde woman with the hat on in the marketplace, but actual Beth or Emily did not show up. But this is kind of what they do. They will give us a big hint when they introduce the pathway to something, even if it's not happening right away. So let me think of a different example of when they've done this. Let's see. I guess you could call this is kind of a small one, but in 509 we saw Glenn pick up a baseball bat, right? And everybody went, "Oh, Negan. Oh." Yeah, it's a foreshadow of Glenn's death, and it was. But it wasn't like Negan showed up in the next episode, and he didn't even show up at Alexandria right away, and he didn't show up in season 5. And he didn't really show up in season 6. I mean, he did it at the very last episode of season 6. Okay, so they were giving us a hint when it was still, I gotta think about that, 23 episodes away before Negan showed up, and about a season and a half. So you see what I mean? Like they don't give us the hint right before it happens. They give it to us a long time before it happens. So I believe that they had they gave this hint as Rick was going into the CRM because that was really the first real, what's the word I'm looking for, like solid canon story we had about the CRM. Like I believe that Gimple knew about the CRM and they were hovering around in the background for years before that, seasons before that. But this is the first time that we were actually going to see them and have a character inside the organization and know that that organization existed and get some information about them. I mean, I guess we did have some in Fear the Walking Dead with Isabel, but anyway, you know what I mean. It was still very shadowy and unknown, that organization. So even though Beth was not going to show up in The Ones Who Live, or, really soon after that, they gave us these clues when Rick went in to tell us that this was the pathway that was going to lead to Beth. It's hinting that something about the CRM that she's connected to. And this is also why, even though The Ones Who Live seem to shore up the CRM pretty well and seem like, oh, it's all good now, we're all buddies, I just don't think that's going to last, and that's not going to be the end of the CRM as we know it. It was just a way to shore up Rick and Michonne's story for the time being, but I don't think that's the last we've seen of that. So anyway, yeah, great job. And I think you really articulated this well. And I don't have a ton more to add. I just think, yeah, I think you're right. And I'm really excited to see what the circumstance. We've been theorizing and wondering and going back and forth and coming up with so many possibilities for so long. I can't wait to see what the circumstances actually are when we finally see her. So thank you. Okay. Okay, apologies in advance for the long ask from the Art of Suicide. I've been running TWDU numbers through the Hebrew lexicon since I sent you that last ask, and this new discovery was just too amazing not to share. This is a translation of the numbers on Isabel's map way back in DDS1. It's a summary of the entire spinoff, assuming that we're correct, which, let's just go ahead and assume that for now. Okay, so these are the numbers. 4335, prayer, worship, by implication, an oratory, chapel. X, pray earnestly and prayer. 3550, a legislator or lawgiver. 433, to attain, i.e., figuratively, to be proper, convenient, or befit. 550, to say off for oneself, disown or renounce. 335, impudence, by implication, importunity. 355, properly, to use up, to destroy or consume. 43, a bend, ache, an arm as curved arm. 33, properly, lead, come on, to go. 35, unregistered as to birth, without descent. 55, purely, honestly, sincerely. 50, not to know through lack of information or intelligence, by implication, to ignore through disinclination. Be ignorant or ignorantly, not know, not understand, unknown. 4333, to work additionally, by implication, acquire, besides, or gain. 3375, assuredly plus surely. 433, see above. 375, to send up or back, send again. 333, to look again attentively or at, literally or figuratively, to behold, to consider. 337, to take up, adopt by implication, to take away violently, abolish, murder, put to death, kill, slay, take away or take up. 43 and 33, see above. 37, to make holy, ceremonially, to purify or consecrate, excuse me, mentally, to venerate, hallow, to be holy, sanctify. And 75, to struggle, literally to compete for a prize, figuratively, to contend with an adversary, or genitive case, to endeavor to accomplish something, fight, labor fervently, or strive. Yeah, I can see what you mean. Like, I don't want to try to go through these in detail for the spin-off, but yeah, you can see how all of these apply to I mean, I think you could apply them to just the first two seasons with Isabel, but I also think you could apply them over, like you said, the entire spin-off. So that's super cool. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious the way that we can apply these to Daryl and some of the things he's going through. So thank you so much for sending that in. That is super cool. And let me know what everybody else thinks about these. I'm sure people are having thoughts. So please send them in. Um, so thank you, The Art of Suicide. We really like those. I really like those, but I probably speak for everybody when I say that. Okay, this is the last one I have, and we're kind of running long, so I'll just go over this and then we'll call it quits for the day. Hi, okay, I might be overthinking this a little. I think that's like TD's motto. We may be overthinking this, but but I just watched your latest YouTube video where someone mentioned that Emily and Lauren will be at the Paris Comic-Con in June. They also said that Dead City has a filming location in France. Then I was scrolling on TikTok and came across the Paris Comic-Con account where there was a video of Emily announcing she'll be there. She said, "Hi everyone, it's Emily Kinney, but many of you know me as Beth from The Walking Dead. I'm so excited to announce that I'll be joining many of my castmates from The Walking Dead for the Atlanta to Paris convention this summer in Paris. I'm so excited to be in Europe for the summer and to meet all the European and French fans. I hope you all get your tickets. It's June 20th and 21st, I believe. This is the second time they've held it, but my first time, so I'm really excited to meet all of you. I hope to see you there." What stood out to me was when she said for the summer. It made me wonder if she might be planning to stay longer than just the convention, but I could definitely be reading too much into it. It might just mean she'll be there for those 2 days. Either way, I'm really looking forward to the convention. I'm sure she'll get asked about her character returning, and I can't wait to see what she says about it. So yeah, I talked about this a little bit in the previous video. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody's thinking that same thing. And I guess we'll just have to watch. I mean, it could just be a misspeak on her part that she's just going to be there in June and that is the summer she's talking about. Um, but we'll have to watch and see, as we all do. Everybody follows her and kind of knows where she is when she gets really quiet, when she disappears from social media for a while. I'm sure we will get a lot of posts, while the convention is going on and maybe for a few days after. But then we'll have to just watch and see what happens. So yeah, I don't think you're overthinking that. I think a lot of people are thinking the same thing. People are sending me that and asking about it, and that's why I talked about it before. So we're with you. We're 100% with you and wondering the same things. But we'll just have to wait and see what it looks like when we finally get to June. So it's not too far off. So thank you for sending that in. I wish I had a better answer, but all I can say is ditto. I'm wondering too. All right, guys, thanks so much for being here with me, and I will be back as soon as I can to do more asks and hopefully a few rewatches, and we'll do some deep dives. So Everyone have a wonderful day and, Bethyl on.